members.
Question number 3, Metiria Turei.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou I te whare. My question is to the Minister of Education and asks, does she stand by her statements in relation to partnership school applicants that, quote, the range of applications we have received is impressive, end quote, and that what she was impressed with was, quote, the broad range of applicants, not the calibre, end quote?
Honourable John Banks.
On behalf of the Minister, yes.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Was the poor calibre of applications the reason why the government missed the June 2013 date for contracts to be signed for these schools? And if not, what was the reason that date was missed?
Honourable John Banks.
Mr Speaker, the Ministry and the officials have been going through a long and vigorous program of delineation of all of the 35 applications to make sure that the right applications get to the right place at the right time and under intense scrutiny. We are not behind time. We're about to announce the successful partnership schools for day 1, term 1 next year in the very near future.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister consider that Catherine Isaac, head of the Partnership Schools Authorisation Board, was telling the truth when she issued a press release on 8 May this year praising, quote, the range and calibre of applicants, end quote, and if so, why?
Honourable John Banks.
On behalf of the Minister, I'm advised that the minutes refer to the Ministry score of how the 67-page application forms were completed. It was not an observation about the quality of the applicants, as the minutes go on to point out. The Authorisation Board and Ms Isaac was charged with determining the quality of the applicants. The applicants have been put through tight hoops and high hurdles, and the very best applicants will be allowed to open a partnership school on day 1, term 1 next year.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order, Metiria Turei.
The Minister did not answer my question.
On this occasion, I invite the member to repeat the question for the benefit of the Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister consider that Catherine Isaac, head of the Partnership Schools Authorisation Board, was telling the truth when she issued a press release on 8 May this year praising, quote, the range and calibre of applicants, end quote, and if so, why?
Honourable John Banks.
I have absolute confidence that Ms Catherine Isaac, the Chairman of the Authorisation Board, would always tell the truth about the applicants, the 35 applicants of the partnership schools, those shortlisted and the successful applicants that will open partnership schools up this and down this country on day 1, term 1 next year.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. How can the Minister consider that Ms Isaac was telling the truth in her 8 May statement, given the day after her press statement was made praising these schools, the board that she chairs noted the low scores and the lack of capability among the 35 applicants for partnership schools?
Honourable John Banks.
We were impressed with the 35 applicants from across the country, and I'm advised that what the member is talking about, low scores, is the Ministry score of how the 67-page application forms were completed. 67-page application forms. It was not an observation about the quality of the applicants, as the minutes go to point out. The Authorisation Board was charged with determining the quality of the applicants. The Authorisation Board has done that and has come back with a group of very successful, high-quality applicants that will face statutory obligations, high hurdles and tight hoops before they open on day 1, term 1 next year.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I seek leave to table a copy of the 9th of May minutes of the Authorisation Board meeting, which clearly shows that the Board commented on the overall level of scoring, which was lower than expected with
That's
significant
enough of a
gaps.
description. Leave us sought to table the minutes dated 9 May. Is there any objection to those being tabled? There appears to be none. They can be tabled.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Has the Authorisation Board sought further applications given the applicants' low overall scores and the gaps identified in business planning, in operations and in legislative knowledge, given that all of these are vital to the running of a school?
Honourable John Banks.
They are vital to the running of these schools, and the running of these schools will be set down in the contracts, statutory contracts set down by the government on behalf of the people for the funding of these schools. And yes, they will have high levels of accountability, openness and structure around them to make them work on day one, term one next year, so that the underachievers in this country can have an opportunity for a world-class education as the Minister might have had.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question was whether the Authorisation Board was seeking further applications given the low quality of the 35. That question has not been answered. Order.
Well, again, part of the problem is the length of the question. The question was certainly, has the Authorisation Board sought further applications? It is difficult for ministers to sometimes decipher a question when it's a long-winded question with a relatively simple question in it. If the member wants to just stand and repeat the essence of the question, which has the Authorisation Board sought further applications, I will attempt to get an answer for the member.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'll take up that opportunity. Has the Authorisation Board sought further applications given the 35 applicants' low scores?
Honourable John Banks.
No, because on balance, the Authorisation Board has come up with a number of partnership schools that will open on day one, term one next year. Amongst the 35 of the applicants, that will be very high quality, that will work in the best interests of the local community and underachieving schools, and will produce outcomes that are absolutely committed to world-class education for these kids.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister think that any applicant for one of these schools should at least score highly on the operations criteria, given that that is the ability to run a school?
Right Honourable John Banks.
I don't have any argument with the proposition put by the member, and I can tell the member that the contracts being negotiated now with the successful group of partnership school applicants will be very, very tight, the hurdles very high, the hoops very tight, and the accountability open and transparency, and she will be able to see it for herself when all the documents are laid out in front of the country, when the successful applicants are named in a very short space of time.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Given the poor quality of the applications, including deficiencies in operations, legislative knowledge and business planning, will she now reconsider this disastrous and wasteful experiment and put the money spent on these schools back into our overstretched public education system?
Honourable John Banks.
No, no and no, because the successful applicants will work in the best interests of the kids from those communities that are underachievers, and this will give them an opportunity for a world-class education. I'm surprised that the leader of the Green Party would not want an opportunity for a world-class education for many of the people that fail in the present system.
Supplementary question. Order. Supplementary question, Ms Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary question to the Minister. How quickly will poor-performing partnership schools be closed down, given the Prime Minister is already stating if those partnership schools don't succeed, the government will be just as quick to close them down as we've been to establish them?
Honourable John Banks.
Well, I've got very good news. Because of the process that these 35 applicants have been through, because of the high quality of the final applicants that are going to be announced very soon to start on day one, term one next year, they won't be closed down. And the only fear that members on the other side of this House have got today is that these partnership schools will work for the most vulnerable kids in our education system.
Point of order. 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 Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. My question to the Minister was actually how quickly will poorly performing partnership schools be closed down? Now, the Minister basically said he didn't think there were going to be any poor performing partnership schools, but he didn't actually say how quickly they'd be closed down.
Well, and if he doesn't think there's going to be any poorly performing such schools, how could he then decide how quickly they'd be closed down? I think the Minister adequately addressed the question. Question number 4, Tim McIndoe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Science and Innovation. How much